In the first half of 2025 alone, Iranian authorities executed at least 612 people. That's more than double the number from the same period in 2024. To put this in perspective, that means Iran was executing an average of 3 people every single day during the first 6 months of the year. Human rights organizations are now projecting that Iran could execute over 1,200 people by the end of 2025, marking what experts are calling one of the most severe ongoing human rights crises in the world today. This isn't just a number on a page. Each execution represents a life lost in what the United Nations calls a deeply troubling surge that crosses all boundaries of international law. Today, we're examining the alarming escalation of Iran's death penalty crisis, the systems driving these executions, and what this means for human rights globally. If you find this content valuable, please consider subscribing for more. To understand the magnitude of Iran's current execution spree, we need to look at the trajectory over recent years. In 2022, Iran executed at least 582 people, according to human rights organizations. This number jumped dramatically to at least 834 executions in 2023, representing a 43% increase year over year. The United Nations reported that 2023 saw at least 853 people executed, making it an 8-year high. The trend continued into 2024, with Iranian authorities executing at least 901 people, according to UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk, though other reports suggest the number reached 975 executions, the highest since 2015. This represented yet another year-over-year increase, establishing a clear pattern of escalation. The numbers become even more stark when we examine specific periods. In May 2023 alone, Iran executed at least 142 individuals, its highest monthly rate since 2015. By August 2024, authorities executed at least 93 people in a single month, twice the number from July of that same year. In one particularly horrific week in December 2024, approximately 40 people were executed. This escalation continued dramatically into 2025. The first 4 months of 2025 saw a 75% increase in executions compared to the same period in 2024. April 2025 alone witnessed at least 110 executions according to Human Rights Watch, while Iran Human Rights documented 152 executions in May 2025. By comparison, April 2024 had only 23 executions, meaning the April 2025 figure represented nearly a 5-fold increase. The statistics for 2025 paint a picture of unprecedented state violence. According to the UN Human Rights Office, at least 612 people were executed in the first half of 2025, more than double the 297 executions during the same period in 2024. Breaking this down monthly, January through April 2025 saw approximately 370 executions, with the pace accelerating through spring and early summer. The demographic breakdown reveals disturbing patterns of discrimination. Iran Human Rights documented that among those executed in April 2025 alone, 3 were women, 4 were Afghan nationals, 35 were from the Baluch minority, 6 were Kurdish, and 1 was Arab. These minorities are significantly overrepresented among the executed population relative to their proportion of Iran's overall population. Geographically, the executions are concentrated in certain regions, but occur nationwide. The Baluchistan region, home to Iran's Sunni Baluch minority, has been particularly targeted. In May 2023, at least 30 of the 142 executed were from predominantly Sunni Baluchistan, a pattern that has continued through 2025. The nature of the offenses leading to execution tells another troubling story. According to UN data, just over half of the executions in the most recent reporting period were for drug-related offenses, 43% were for murder, 2% for sexual offenses, and 3% for security-related charges. This distribution is significant because drug-related offenses do not meet the international legal threshold of most serious crimes, for which the death penalty may be applied under international law. The Death Penalty Information Center reports that drug-related offenses account for about half of all executions, with the continued execution of political prisoners representing another deeply concerning trend. At least 4 executions were carried out publicly during the recent surge, adding an element of public intimidation to the state's campaign. Iran human rights organizations estimate that if current trends continue, Iran could surpass 1,200 executions by the end of 2025, which would represent the highest annual total in decades and establish Iran as executing more people per capita than any other nation. Iran's execution surge operates within a broader legal and political framework that facilitates mass killings. The country's judicial system allows for the death penalty for a wide range of offenses, many of which fall far short of international standards, requiring limitation to only the most serious crimes. Under Iranian law, drug trafficking offenses can result in death sentences, even for relatively small quantities of narcotics. The threshold for capital drug crimes is significantly lower than international norms, and the definition of trafficking is broadly interpreted. This has created a system where individuals, often from economically disadvantaged backgrounds or ethnic minorities, face execution for crimes that would result in prison sentences in most other countries. The judicial process itself is deeply flawed, according to multiple human rights organizations. The Center for Human Rights in Iran reports that detainees are subjected to fast-track trials in what they term kangaroo courts without adequate legal representation or due process. Many defendants lack access to qualified lawyers, and trials often last only minutes, rather than providing the thorough examination required for capital cases. Iran's penal code also allows for executions based on charges of moharibi, or enmity against God, a broadly defined security offense that has been used against political prisoners, protesters, and activists. Similarly, charges of corruption on earth carry the death penalty and have been applied in cases that would not warrant capital punishment under international law. The political context is crucial to understanding this surge. Iranian authorities appear to be using executions as a tool of social control and intimidation. The timing of execution sprees often correlates with periods of social unrest or political tension. Human rights experts note that the dramatic increase in executions serves to instill fear in the population and deter potential protests or dissent. The recent regional conflicts have provided additional justification for increased executions on espionage and security charges. Since regional tensions escalated, at least 6 executions on espionage charges have been carried out, with additional death sentences expected. Iran's execution practices stand in stark violation of international legal standards and norms. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Iran has signed, explicitly limits use of the death penalty to only the most serious offenses, a standard that excludes drug-related and political crimes. Yet these categories represent the majority of Iran's executions. Globally, the trend in capital punishment is toward abolition or significant reduction. As of 2024, over 140 countries have abolished the death penalty in law or practice. Among the countries that retain capital punishment, most execute far fewer people annually than Iran. China, which historically led the world in executions, has significantly reduced its numbers in recent years, making Iran's surge even more anomalous. The scale of Iran's executions places it among a small group of countries responsible for the vast majority of global executions. In 2023, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and China accounted for the overwhelming majority of confirmed executions worldwide. However, Iran's per capita execution rate appears to be the highest globally, making it statistically the most execution-prone nation on Earth. International response has been swift but largely ineffective in stopping the killings. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has repeatedly condemned the surge, stating that it crosses all boundaries and represents a severe ongoing human rights crisis. Multiple UN experts have called for immediate moratoriums and expressed alarm over the acceleration of executions. The European Union, United Kingdom, United States, and other nations have imposed sanctions on Iranian officials responsible for human rights violations, including those involved in the execution surge. However, these measures have not translated into reduced execution rates. Human rights organizations describe Iran's prisons as having been transformed into sites of mass killings. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and Iran Human Rights have all documented the surge and called for robust international action to halt what they characterize as systematic state killing. The implications extend beyond Iran's borders. The execution surge contributes to regional instability and sends a chilling message to human rights defenders throughout the Middle East. It also undermines international efforts to promote abolition of capital punishment globally. Iran's execution surge in 2025 represents an unprecedented human rights crisis that demands urgent international attention. With over 600 people already executed in the first half of the year, and projections suggesting the total could exceed 100 by year's end, Iran is conducting what amounts to systematic state killing on a scale unseen in decades. The trend shows no signs of abating without significant international pressure. The Iranian government appears to view executions as an effective tool for maintaining control and deterring dissent, suggesting that without external intervention, the killing will continue to escalate. For the families of those executed, for Iran's minorities living in fear, and for the cause of human rights globally, the stakes could not be higher. The world is watching as a state transforms its justice system into a machine of mass execution, and history will judge how the international community responds to this crisis. This has been an examination of Iran's 2025 execution surge. The numbers tell a story of systematic human rights violations that demand our attention and action. Thank you for watching, and please consider supporting organizations working to document and stop these violations of human dignity. If you find this content valuable, please consider subscribing for more.